Welcome to Inaudible. My name is Jeremy Weiland, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jamie Leastman. On this podcast, we discuss the weird, beautiful channel messages found in the long tradition of contact with the Confederation of planets in service to the one infinite creator. These messages articulate a philosophy of spiritual evolution, popularly known as the Law of One, and many of these messages are available to listen to on our sister podcast, Living, Love, and Light, still available on all platforms. Jamie and I will endeavor to provide approachable analysis and useful commentary on the philosophy described in these messages by identifying the common themes and grappling with the application of this information to our human lives. However, we are not gurus or experts of any kind, so please evaluate our remarks in light of our shortcomings and use your own best judgment. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Before we jump in, I want to say this episode probably will adhere to the guidelines I just laid out the least, because they have a lot to do with things that I've been thinking about, things I want to work out, and Jamie has kindly agreed to be you, the listener's advocate, to make sure that I don't go off the rails and get too weird. But before we jump into that, how are things going, Jamie? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's beautiful August day. I'm heading up to stay with my mom for a week after this, so I'm really looking forward to that. Get some lake time. It's my birthday month. I've got a lot of things coming up. I've got my birthday party that we do. August is a great time to have a birthday for having a summer barbecue, I will say. So I got that going on, and then I'm doing my annual canoe trip to the Boundary Waters, which has been pretty dicey, though, because of the wildfires up there.
Oh, crap.
And we were like, it was a real nail biter. I know that our exit and entry points have opened back up, but still kind of dicey up there. So we're hoping that everything is going to go through with that. But yeah, summer times.
Yeah, Jamie, don't take offense to this, but you do strike me as a birthday month kind of person.
Oh, I'm a huge birthday month person.
I know a lot of birthday month people.
I'm gonna flex it.
And y'all are the people I want to go out drinking with. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you are the party people.
We're the most fun.
Yeah. That's why, like Jamie was asking earlier, I was like, I want you to push back on me, and I want you to, linger in the background with your arms crossed and be like, that's dope, yo. And she was like, oh, you want me to be the hype man? I'm like, Jamie. Yes, you are the best kind of hype man. Whereas I'm going to be the dour weirdo. Things are going good with me. The job's going well. Other things are going well. I do feel like we need to, in the working group, we kind of need to get a little bit more oomph and momentum in what we're doing. But it's the summer. Like, I understand. Like, things are going on. I'm still trying to get the social memory complex.earth community off the ground. But I do want to at least mention two things that I'm pretty excited about that don't really have to do with seeking per se. They have more to do with technical things that I've been working on that are sort of ancillary, supportive to that. One is Orbiter. Orbiter is the fruition of a dream that I've had since the pandemic, when the Richmond Meditation Circle had to do all of our meditations online over Google Meet. And of course, it's really tough to do a meditation when everybody has control over their own mic, because inevitably somebody doesn't mute, and then like something happens and it resonates throughout the whole, chat when you're trying to meditate. And it also is like a little difficult to understand how to go about the sharing circle in the manner that Carla taught that we practice. So I, with AI's help, wrote a web chat enabled meditation app that kind of automates this process, turns off mics when they need to be turned off, turns off cameras, has the timer and the bell built into it. We're starting to use it in the Social Memory Complex Earth community to do weekly meditations. And if that's something that you're interested in, go to socialmemorycomplex.earth, reach out on the forum. I'd love to know that y'all are out there. We don't have a lot of like activity in the community right now, so I'm kind of reconsidering this
study circle stuff. Just saying.
Oh yeah. Well, Jamie has done a presentation that was really cool. I'm going to be doing a presentation next week. And so I think people would be interested in this. A lot of people expect to see my contributions on Reddit. And I really think that I'm going to be pulling back from Reddit just because I'm not grown up enough to use Reddit. Like I I'm only half kidding. Um, I want too much from it, you know? And so instead of trying to get Reddit to be something that it never will be, I'm trying to build that community on, a platform where I have a little bit more control. I can I can invite the right people. What I want to do is cultivate, it's not just a place where people who are interested in the law of one show up. I want to cultivate a community in which people are active and that it matters and is meaningful to show up and participate. Not just some place where it's like, well, let me check Reddit. Yeah, same old BS. All right, I'm back to the, just being on my own. So may seem a little harsh, but for some of us who've been seeking for a really long time, like we are looking, we're not just looking to be teachers to others. We want peers who have put in the work that we have, and we can, work at the level that we're at while also serving those who might just be starting out or have questions or stuff like that. And it doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It's just kind of like something that I desire and have desired for a long time. It's part of the reason why I ended up leaving LL Research, is because they didn't offer something like this. So it's not their job to do what I want. It's my job to build what my heart desires. So that's what I'm trying to do. So there's Orbiter, orbiter.socialmemorycomplex.earth. We'll have a link. The other thing is that for those of you who meditate on your own like I do, there is a real dearth of like meditation timer apps that do one thing and one thing well. Do a bell, have a countdown, do another bell. Like I've used Insight Timer both on my own meditations and with Richmond meditations. You too?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's always trying to sell you like spiritual influencer BS all the time. It wants to be all these different things. It wants to be like a social community. I don't need that. I just want a simple meditation timer. So I've built a native iPhone and Android app, but I'm still working through how to get that on the App Store. In the meantime, you can use my timer. I've built it so that not only does it work on native platforms, but it also works on the web. So if you go to spacetimer.socialmemorycomplex.earth,
It's a solid
you'll
pun.
get you'll get a nice simple interface for doing a meditation. It doesn't track you. It doesn't have any sort of like interaction with a database that I'm in charge of. It's just a meditation timer. And we've been working out the kinks in Richmond. So it used to fall asleep in the middle of it, like the phone would lock. And then like at some point somebody would be like, hasn't it been like 30 minutes already? And we go look at it and open up the phone and then bang, right? Like then it does the announcement. So we've done some work to get the sleeping to not turn on. The same way when you go to a cooking site and you can do that thing that says don't let the screen lock or don't let the computer sleep. It's the same kind of API. So those two things are ways where these are sort of like more concrete ways that I want to realize socialmemorycomplex.earth's mission, which is to provide tools and guidance and community for people who want to seek in common with others.
Jeremy,
so I hope to build on this.
You can also make an app soon called the Time Spacer that helps me organize my life. So I have time every day that I set aside for meditation. That's your next project. You're welcome.
I was thinking Time Spacer would be some sort of dream journaling app.
Ooh,
right?
That's good, right? Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And then you can sort of like Time Spacer helps you space out.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Like we need help with that, right?
Right. Totally.
So yeah, so that and all of this is kind of triggered, like all of the new sites that I've built, like Hark even has been like retooled to be with the help of LLM powered coding tools like Cursor and Claude and Copilot, Codex. These are all things that with 25 years of experience, like I've really been focusing on how to leverage this stuff such that, I'm not just trusting what the AI is doing, but I can kind of guide it and I can kind of like make myself more productive. And it's been really interesting. And I'm going to nerd out on this a little bit. Jamie, if you need to jump in, please just interrupt me.
Should I talk about my biases before?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Well, I mean, I come from a world where I work in retail and customer service, and every day I have to delete about 15 emails that want to make an AI bot to take my job.
Right.
And I don't need AI to write an email, even to an angry customer. Um, and so I kind of resent it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because of its interference in my world. Now, it does, I'm not saying I don't use it. I use like a grammar correcting built-in thing, so that's a form of AI, right?
Yeah.
Which is handy. So it does have its uses, and also within my company, like it has made some serious cost savings for 3D modeling and design, and not like image generative design, but like
Yeah.
making sampling and product tech packs, tech designs much more easy. And so it's out there, and I do kind of resent also like the tech company like push, just like, well, it's inevitable, so
Yes.
like I just kind of like I have a little oppositional defiance, just like against that sort of like, because I don't think that big tech companies have our best interests at their core. And so these are the people who are creating these things and driving them things, controlling these things, monitoring these things. So I don't really trust it, because all of it just like, I think the tech companies want you to think that you can have a facsimile of life through this, a cell phone, that all you need is this for your everything. And that is just fucking sad to me. Like, so maybe not AI specifically, but like I have this like resistance and defiance against some of these things that they're just diminishing to our own innate gifts and intelligence and intuition. And it's all like, instead of trusting our own selves, our intuition and our gifts, our birthrights, it's all being kind of, oh, just use this. And I'm guilty of it myself. I'm just like a normal person who spends at least, I don't know, an hour or so every day fucking around on my phone, looking things up or scrolling through Instagram or whatever. But I also kind of resent it for the time it steals from me. So there we go. Those are my biases.
I think we're
It's my feelings.
100%. I think we're on the same page. Um, the last time that tech pushed something like this as so groundbreaking and inevitable, I felt like was the NFT thing,
Oh, right.
the non-fungible
Sure.
tokens. And like now everybody sees like all that Bored Ape stuff. Like it's so stupid. And like, if anything, AI is even stupider. The economics are not there. Like you don't have to do anything but scratch the surface of these like profitability reports to see that like there is no way that they can make money off of this. Like this is, they want this so badly to be a profitable capitalist like new um, industry that they've created, a new thing that people spend money on, and it just the economics aren't there. It doesn't
The
mean that
most
it doesn't.
open source thing to ever open
Oh yeah,
source.
and like you're gonna know when the market is gonna crash because of all of this, because all of these like open source cheap models that China is coming up with that eat the lunch of like Anthropic and all that, like the economics are not there, and so you need some sort of industry that isn't 100% focused on profitability but is instead trying to create capability, right? Like that's where the future is, I think. And that means that AI doesn't have to have this apocalyptic role in our lives. It can be, if it's not this end all be all thing, but instead just another thing that's out there, then we can decide how to use it. And like, we were just in my church at the staff meeting, the ministers were talking about, coming up with some policies so that the congregants knew that like sermons they were listening to were not AI generated. And this is something where it really is, I think, in many ways about are all of the things that we do about the connections that we create, not with the words and the products and the events and all the outer stuff, but is that outer stuff supposed to be a conduit to a connection between my heart and your heart, or my heart and somebody else's heart? Just, or are these all like kayfabe? Are they all just like distractions or ways of tricking people into thinking that they're having real contact and real community with each other? And I think AI brings that to the fore because it can simulate so much of what before was the kind of telltale sign that somebody had applied their intelligence and applied their heart and self to something. That said, at the beginning of the year when I was looking for work, I was like apoplectic about, AI had eaten my job. I definitely don't feel that way anymore. It is absolutely clear to me that anybody who trusts the AI is going to drive directly into a ditch, and that it just makes when it's being used at its best, it is bubbling up true decisions that make a difference to the human user. When it's being used at its worst, it's trying to stand in for the human user in this way that everybody can tell. Like, very few people these days, especially the kids know AI when they see it. Because it's all over TikTok, it's all over the shorts, right? Like, you get inundated with all of this like stupid content, and it's a reflection. I've said before, AI doesn't show us how intelligent it is. It shows us how robotic we are. It reflects back to us those parts of ourself that are kind of an artificial intelligence on top of that thing that is at our core, the creator in our true creative capacity. But there are a lot of things about our awareness, our consciousness, our lives that kind of are autonomic, that go on autopilot. That's kind of how it has to work, right?
I mean, God damn it, but it is reflective of us. Of course we wouldn't train AI to teach us how to pick plastic out of the ocean, or
right.
Of course we're just making memes.
Yeah. And like, you look at the slop AI generates.
Right.
Like, are you telling me that corporations and marketing companies didn't generate just as crappy slop? Like, what do you think the AI was trained on? Like, that's why what's on the internet, the vast majority of it, because it's been so monetized, is a bunch of stuff that all looks the same.
Yeah.
And we did that. That's not AI's fault.
Yeah. Well, the AI was trained on TikTok videos. We're like, why doesn't everyone... Here's a fun little viral trend. Everyone do a facial expression for each, emotion. And it's like, oh, this is a fun thing. When it's all those little dumb trends are just to train AI models, and it's just as dumb as all the input.
Absolutely. Soy face was cringe before AI got involved, right? Like, it's just stupid. But anyway, I'm not trying to turn this, and we're just going to go ahead and make this an explicit episode. I'm not going to beep us out because we clearly have, big feelings on this. So no big deal. I am going to now talk about, what is it about AI specifically that has intrigued me? And it's not the AI itself. It's a kind of parallel nature I've seen to the way I'm starting to be trained to think about and use these tools, and what goes on within our mind, body, spirit complex, with the goal being that I'm really interested in what the seat of agency, what the seat of will is. In other words, if we are complexes of many different distinguishable selves, right? Like, in the sense that we have a mind complex, we have an intellect, we have an intuitive capability, we have a body complex that is they're part of the same thing, but like we wouldn't call it a complex if they were the exact same identity, right? The whole idea is that we have this kind of fractal hierarchical composite self, uh, composed of aspects that we are aware of, that we have conscious and direct access to, and parts that we don't have direct access to that nevertheless are ourselves. So if that's the case, and if we already know that Ra has said that, for example, once the choice of polarity that one has made is identified, it's already long since in the past that the actual choice was made, right? Which implies that that choice and perhaps many other choices that where they really occur is at a lower or deeper level than we actually participate in consciously. So what does that mean? And I see AI and how I'm being trained to use AI as analogous to that. All right. So the thing that this is usually training at work is complete bullshit, right? Like it is just box ticking stuff, right? Everybody here who has any kind of job with a corporate HR department knows exactly what I mean. This training with Claude has been like some of the most interesting and useful stuff I've ever gotten. The reason is okay, so let's go back to like 2023, 2024. When I would use AI tooling to help me write code or something like that, it would like 30% of the time give me something that was useful. It might do a lot of the rote work that then I could go in and clean up, but it was not a usable product. And like I remember fall of last year, the company I was at had a hackathon, and I was using the lead on my team had encouraged me to use Cursor, and I was just blown away by how much farther it had come. It was able to, I mean, it's learning all this stuff from open source, right? Like it's not that it's necessarily intelligent. It's just that it is intelligent, but it's that intelligence is born of the intelligence that's inherent in all of that data. All of that data has these correspondences that it is picking up on and using. But it can do it. It can do a really good job with it. And I was using like 70 to 80% rather than 30%. Big leap in the sense that, I was even having it log into my server and fix things. Like I had never seen anything like that before. It kind of freaked me out.
So circle back to then the analogy between the mind
Right.
body spirit complex.
This is where I'm going.
Okay.
Just give me 2 more minutes. All right. So when I started this job, they immediately were in the process at this big medical company, right? Billions of dollars, right? So they have a vested interest in using it, but also there's patient health information. They can't take chances with that because that's a huge liability. So I started getting training, and a lot of what that training entailed was not just like how to prompt. That's usually how we think of it using AIs. You tell it what to do, you give it an idea of what success means, and you go and let it do it. A lot of what they were talking about was managing context. In other words, context is all of the kind of thinking and instruction and data that it's taken in that it then is using to then act upon your code base. But you can actually accrue a lot of stuff in a code base that isn't germane to the thing you want done. And because the economics of this involve these things called tokens, which are basically like pieces of a word, like the more you confuse it and clutter it with a bunch of like input that it doesn't need, you're wasting tokens and you're sort of spinning it out, and you're going to get less reliable stuff because you haven't given it the specific frame that you want it to have. So a lot of what I've been learning is how to like kind of like wipe its memory, load in its memory. Like it's not just telling it to do things, it's kind of adjusting what it perceives when it's doing its
what
reasoning.
To focus on and what to ignore, equally important.
And this is where I've had some realizations that it would be useful to talk about AI as an analogy of the mind body spirit complex and this kind of plural self that is at all these different levels, cooperate or conflicting to sort of grease the rails of evolution and disciplining. and the execution of catalytic benefit to us. So if you think about the fact that the AI does seem like it's doing the work, but it also does a lot of things that it doesn't need to, or it gets bogged down. When we direct it, we are kind of calling out, like we're saying, look at this, don't look at that. In the same way, doesn't the higher self, doesn't the subconscious alert us as conscious agent, as its conscious agents, to things that we should pay attention to or not pay attention to by the provisioning of catalyst, by the provisioning of little hints or little triggers that give us data that we might otherwise not perceive. So you can see how if that analogy does that analogy like make sense?
It does, especially
Okay.
for me in my dream work when I
Right.
get recurring dreams. That is like, that's a signal, you know?
Yeah,
Like
just
that
like
is like
catalyst.
something that my subconscious, my higher self is just like, hey, a little just a reminder here. We're still working on this kind of thing.
And just like catalyst, dreams do not necessarily disclose the full meaning
No,
that they entail and that generated them, right? In the same way, AI doesn't necessarily understand what it means that I want to write a meditation timer. It LLMs are basically, like, to make it very, very, very simple. Like, it's kind of almost like a Markov chain where, like, there are statistical words that follow other words. And so you're constantly kind of narrowing down what the next word will be and what the next response will be statistically. And then we're trying to dial it in by training it. Oh, actually, choose that word over that. That was wrong. That was right. And over time, it kind of like statistically learns and dials in what it means to put out these characters. It doesn't understand them. It simply just has this. There's this mechanistic awareness that's implied by language itself, if that makes sense. In the same way that, like, our minds are okay, not that. Let's say our brains are so developed evolutionarily to house thought and response to stimulus. Uh, that is not some special thing that the universe brought into being. That is instead a special expression of an underlying intelligibility in the universe, brought to a level in which it can do this kind of thing. This is where the energy systems or the energy centers really come into play, because it's not just about conscious, unconscious, or self-aware, not self-aware. There are gradations. We've identified 7 gradations, and then there's sub-gradations within that. So we have this kind of, like, we have more colors to paint with when we talk about this sort of panpsychic approach to intelligence, in the sense of, it's not about it's intelligent or not intelligent. It's how intelligent and what kind of intelligence, right? Does that make sense?
7 gradations.
Yeah. So there's red ray intelligence.
Oh, okay.
There's violet ray intelligence, right? There's all
All right. Well,
these are
those.
different
All right.
ways of expressing it. And
Sure.
we typically don't express them as purely green ray, purely orange ray, right?
No,
They're kind of chords, right? They're kind of like mixtures.
it's a Venn
Some are
diagram,
predominant.
if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Prism,
I
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and like, I may be wrong about this in some fundamental way, but you get where I'm going, like the kind of thing I'm gesturing at, of the ambiguity of where you would, like, draw the line in all of this.
Right.
To the same extent that you and I are able to have a connection and a kind of shared intelligence that comes from linguistic communication. In other words, there are thoughts that you and I can share that are born of a common understanding of what language can embed within itself. But there are also things that you and I can both think that we can't really express linguistically, except as kind of like a symbolic thing, which that means meaning, right? That means the words aren't carrying the meaning. It is the triggering of some sort of latent element within you that my words trigger, and then we have this kind of resonance, right? And that is too intelligent. That too is communication, but it's not communication born of the linguistics. And what I'm saying is AI kind of represents, in my model, our conscious selves. It is easily swayed, as Ross says, like water. It can work on the illusion, but it often doesn't, in and of itself, understand the meaning of what it's doing. Now, the difference, the place that this analogy breaks down is that we know that our conscious and unconscious portions are part of the same complex. We don't typically think of Claude being part of our complex, right? It's
Right.
not part of us. I mean, of course, in a universal, in a creation of unity, it is in some ultimate sense, but not in the sense at which we're occupying right now. So in that sense, it's not a good analogy, but it's close enough if I think of myself in my economic mode, in my productive mode. In my productive mode, I don't write code without a computer. It is kind of part of the mind, body, spirit employment complex.
Oh
I'm
boy.
being goofy because I just want to make sure that
Mhm.
like folks are following me. So
What
anyway,
about
the
Jeremy?
idea, yeah,
Could I interrupt you?
please.
What about our like known proclivity here on planet Earth, their density for loving tools?
That's
You know what I mean?
that's a really good
Because
thing to think about.
think of, I mean, we love our tools and all the things that we create, and like some in a way, AI could be kind of like an ultimate manifestation of that.
Oh, I 100% believe. But
So
it's like it is the ultimate tool in which it can kind of do like 90% of the task. And so it throws back at us. Now we have more time to think about what's worth doing instead
right,
of just being focused on the production process. And we are attracted to it. I'm attracted to it for that reason. And that's in spite of all of the crappy stuff about it that I just spoke of. Um, but at the same time, like, I've talked with my fellow programmers about what happens to the next generation who natively has AI available to it. How do they ever learn the debugging and code, reading and writing skills that allows me to use the AI because I don't have to accept what the AI says. I can tell when it's telling me something wrong. I don't know if the next, and that is hard won. In the same sense, uh, I, as a waking conscious person named Jeremy, I make mistakes. I do bad things like all the time, right? Like I go down roads that I shouldn't go down. I do things that hurt people. I do things that hurt myself. And part of why that is instructive is because when I take in those lessons, I learn that there's something about the emotional feedback that creates that goes beyond just the way that I conceive of my interests consciously, right? There's, even if I get one up on somebody else by deceiving them, I don't feel right. And I can't necessarily account for that feeling other than tying it to the feedback of my actions. And so there's you are haunted by your unconscious portions because they don't announce themselves. They simply kind of like spook you. They kind of are there in spite of your ability to place them neatly and statically within yourself. Um, and this is why I think human instrumentality, the idea of being a vessel for the creator, is the path of not only our philosophy, but I think a lot of the Abrahamic faiths too. I mean, maybe not Judaism, but Christianity. I mean, I was really affected by Ray Stanford's Fatima prophecy, where he talked about the whole message of Christ being not my will, but thine, surrendering to the Creator and doing the Creator's will and sort of sacrificing your own will on the cross. He had this whole thing where, like he said, the thalamus or whatever was the seat of, or the thyroid, I forget which one, is the seat of the will in the gland system of an entity. And the reason why the cross in Christianity was kind of like offset up from just being like a straight, like it had a T rather than like a plus sign, was because it was supposed to be intersecting here. It's supposed to say, this is where we make our choice to serve the Creator. In the same sense, Islam means submission. A lot of like what Muhammad was talking about was abnegating the conscious, self and all of its appetites so that you could serve the Creator. Like both of 2 out of 3 Abrahamic faiths are really about not you doing the right thing at the end of the day, but getting out of the way so that the right thing can be done that you can't possibly know. I know I'm going to great extremes here in interpreting them.
Those are just such vulnerable configurations for control and, like surrendering to the will of God. Well, who is the Creator? Who is the, who's the, who's the voice of the Creator in your world and your religion or whatever? It's been so much horrible abuse and control and manipulation and distortion has come as a result of Abrahamic religions and
absolutely
and so on,
especially in their social expression, right? Like as individual faiths, a lot of what I'm saying obtains, but in their social expression they were like kind of twisted. Islam not as much as people think, but still you have Wahhabism and all that, right? And this gets me to, you and I are going to be doing a bonus episode soon, I think, on a book by Peter Kingsley called Reality.
Yes.
One of the reasons I've started rereading it a third time is, and also his book Catafalque, which is more about Jung. I don't want to get into that, but he talks a lot in his books about our helplessness, about our complete inability to get out of the rut.
Yeah.
And that this is not something that's like modern. This is a perennial human condition of being spun around by our own selves, of being utterly confused. And in his books, he talks about ancient ways in I guess primordial societies in which this was dealt with and addressed. And the one that he identifies with the most is the Greek myths and their kind of like position at the foundation of Western civilization. And he talks a lot about like Western civilization and how civilizations tend to be the expression of a divine idea, that they don't just come up because you're in a river valley with like the ability with arable land. Like they have a purpose to them, and then they go away when that purpose is like fulfilled or when that purpose is just lost. That's neither here nor there. But this idea of our individual helplessness and our inability to, of ourselves, of our waking selves, make heads or tails of all this, has really impacted me. Because if that's the case, Jamie, then what does it mean for the Confederation, for those of Ra, to tell us to do things or not do things, to give us advice on what we might do, how we might approach things? Upon what basis do we make that decision? What part of ourselves is actually calling the shots at all in the first place?
Well, I mean, the veil is so thick here, and like the whole point of third density is to make that choice again and again and refine the choice each time.
Who makes the choice? That's what I'm really, that is what this is about. This podcast episode is not about AI. It is about where is the choice made, because it is so easy when they say, oh, you have to make the choice between good and evil or service to self or service to others, whatever it is, right? We naturally assume, okay, well, the person you're looking at and listening to right now, is the one that's going to make the choice. But I
Right.
don't think that's the case. I don't think
Really?
I'm capable of it.
It's like the prism of ourselves, our little complexes. We have free will.
Do I really have free will?
Well, yes,
In what sense?
that you could play the game or, not play the game.
Do I have free will to participate or not participate in spiritual evolution?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you do. Like, you can negate it. You can not
But even in
participate
negating
in
it,
it.
don't I acknowledge its reality and its primacy?
Well, I think that, like, indifference can be. Oh,
You don't have
okay.
to
I don't know.
play
I'm kind of
laser
stumped.
tag, but you don't have to play laser tag, but you can just hang out in the laser tag room and hide. But like that doesn't mean that the laser tag facility isn't real and that the game doesn't have, winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
It's even deeper than that though, because okay, let's say
There's
like
just so much that we have built up as we've in our mind and our experiences, and our perception of our world is just so narrow, and so, like, I mean, I think we actually do have the choice, but, like, because of the way that we have conditioned our minds, have been conditioned, how we've conditioned ourselves through all of our experiences, it really, like, it's pretty narrow, like, what our choices are, or what our options are.
now there's a little bit of a misnomer in my pushing back on the free will thing, which is that who is the one exercising the will? Is it when I say who, I mean like what part of me? Of course, like see, this is what's
It's
really
the
weird about
complex.
right, exactly.
It's a
Ra
complex.
when Ra is talking to Don, when Kuo is talking to the questioner, are they addressing simply the part of them that is conscious, or are they addressing the total creator before them?
Well, I think from their perspective, you cannot help but address the total.
Exactly. Which is why when we think about how to apply, we talk on this podcast that we are trying to give people, information and inspiration such that they can apply these words to their life, right? That's our whole point. I don't want to be here just to like abstractly pontificate on theoretical theory of mind ideas or something like that. I want to be able to apply this philosophy to my life so that I can tell for myself what is true in it and what is not. Therefore, it begs the question: what of it am I actually able to engage with, and what of it is beyond me?
Well, I think Peter Kingsley would say that like what amount of control we think we have is just completely nothing,
That
But
is just
that's
as much a part of the illusion,
but
right?
but
that
that's kind of the
feeling.
point
Yeah.
of the illusion, right?
Yeah.
That
That's what he's saying so much about Greek myths is that
Mhm.
how many Greek myths have the concept of the trickster, the
Yeah.
concept of like a cleverness
Mhm.
and like outsmarting somebody, right? It's like this whole like shell game of consciousness.
or like the Aphrodite that
Right.
like soothes us into like a type of lulls us into a kind of sleep where we're so comfortable or happy, or that we just so comfortable in our understanding that the wool has been completely pulled over our eyes.
You passed the did Jamie actually read the book test? Because like I totally forgotten about that, and I've read it twice, and I'm just starting it for the third. But like, yes, no, 100% true. Like that is a great point. So I want to advance a argument. I don't claim that this is true, but it does kind of condition how I'm thinking about the Confederation's message right now. a lot, remember that, I don't remember the exact quote, but Ross says, it's best not to balance in the moment of confrontation with catalyst. It's better to just kind of react the way that you're going to react, respond the way you're going to respond, and then later on take it into meditation for balancing. Why do they say that? Wouldn't it be if the moment of confrontation with this catalyst is so important, and we all agree it is, why wouldn't we want to manipulate it in the moment to figure it out, right? Why not? And the reason is because the confrontation is a symbol of a deeper thing going on, in my view. It is the explosion, but it is not the core dynamite. That's a bad analogy. It is it is I don't know, what do you think?
Well, it's because that experience is so important. Sometimes you need to let the experience happen. And as annoying and horrible as that is, think how many times have you said something so awkward or cringe, or like said something that you regret to your loved one or whatever, and then
in this podcast many times.
Yeah. And then and then you spend the time later in meditation because you can't get it out of your head,
right?
And that's the balancing part. That's the distilling of the love and light from that experience. That's where the value is. Like, yes, of course it would be awesome to have that brilliant, like, snarky confrontation, or, be brilliant in that confrontational moment. But, like, it's so rare that happens. Like, it seems like the value is in reviewing it. And it's also kind of like in dreams too, like thinking about the emotional content of the dream, because in a dream state you are without judgment. Like, your conscious mind is suspended. You are purely experiencing it. You believe everything that you're seeing is true, whether it's scary, beautiful, or mundane, or whatever, and you're just pure experience. And so when you become conscious again, your conscious mind, your logic and intellect turns back on, then you can kind of review those things for their symbology they may contain. And I think that's where the grist of the mill is.
To me, yeah, let me I agree with you. And I want to kind of put a finer point on it. What is illusory in part about that entire process you just described is the distancing of the reflection from the thing being reflected on, right? They are part of one thing, but we have sort of like sequenced it in time. Yeah. And time is kind of like stretched out this unity into 2 or 3 or 4 pieces, but it's all one unity. It's a complex of these different stages, and we've drawn the lines. We've divided up a whole pie. What I think is really important here is a lot of where the actual change occurs is in that reflecting, not in the acting per se. And therefore, this is where I'm going. What if our actual agency is not in action, in decision, in the illusion, but in the attention that we give it?
Oh, absolutely. I would agree.
I don't think this is a novel idea, but I think
where your focus goes, energy flows.
Just like the way that I direct the context of the AI determines how useful it is.
Fair enough.
That's where I backed in this whole idea. I'd been thinking on this way before, but it was the way I was interacting with the AI that really kind of like made it concrete to me. And I wanted to reflect on it with you and with the listeners, to kind of think about how we should judge ourselves. And I do think that like judgment is appropriate for the self if it is done in a way that we are trying to get better. We're not just trying to, whip ourselves. But it is part of the disciplining to let these things let these things that We appraise as good, these things we appraise as bad and undesirable, but we let it all penetrate. We let it all get through, and we pay it, and we bring it into our awareness, and we sit with it, and we let it kind of work in this way that we don't understand, but that nevertheless has a product. It has an outcome that then we can sort of participate in.
Yeah,
In
that's
the
the
sense
good
that if
stuff.
I learn not to hurt somebody in this specific way again, I can take that forward with me. Now that becomes a part of me. Now that becomes a foundation upon which I can build new lessons. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And that is, and it's uncomfortable too. And so much of our, we don't want to be in fear or pain or doubt, but sometimes sitting with those things and processing them, balancing them, be uncomfortable. And it, for me personally, it took a long time for me to be able to, and it's still a work in progress, obviously, to like be able to truly have some self-reflection and feel those things, those uncomfortable feelings, and examine those things that, you know, but that's where the work is happening. That's doing the work.
Yeah. That is kind of trying to participate instead of seeing the primary agency that you have as being in the illusion directly up against the concrete events of your life, to instead see your primary role as one of like reflecting. And in this reflection, you are naturally not just using your conscious mind. That's the key, is that in reflecting and allowing things to sit, you put things on background and you allow for other parts of yourself to have input that you start to learn to trust, that you start to learn to even rely upon. In the same way that like the ideal Christian or the ideal Muslim learns to rely upon the Creator and to not care so much about the self. The same way that Kuo and Ra speak of our waking selves as instruments of the Creator, right? An instrument is something that can get into the mucky, places that you don't want to touch. Think of the forceps, right? You can reach into the body cavity and like get out what you need to get, but it's the forceps that get dirty. You can then pull the thing out and look at it and decide what to do next. What I'm suggesting is that in privileging the discipline of our attention, we sharpen our instrument on the Creator's behalf so that then the Creator can use us in more and more nuanced ways. And remember, like the instrument
Pretty good sentence
user
there, Jeremy.
the instrument user dichotomy is a line it's a line that we draw. It's a line that Confederation draws in their language bound communications with us. But really there is no difference, right? Like when I learn to be an effective instrument at that level of awareness, I then make it much more, I am in harmony with the person, with the entity using the instrument much more fully. And then I can see, and maybe I can't think the thought of being aligned in the project of the Creator, but I can feel it. And I think in dealing with these affective reflections on catalytic events that happen to us, instead of just getting right in there and trying to force things through, we pull back, we're more reflective and contemplative about this. We learn how to harmonize and align with those parts of ourselves that we don't have direct access to. We learn, it's almost like in the army, like you have to follow orders without understanding why you're following orders. And it goes up the chain of command. But in this case, it's much more like a dance with a bunch of partners where like you're learning how to place your feet where you feel they should be because you've spent so much time with these other dance partners that you, even though you don't know where they're going to place your feet, you just trust your instincts and you naturally are in sync, right? And it's a process and it's a growth of getting there. But this is kind of what I think self-awareness is for, because it's very interesting. We are self-aware, and yet we are instruments. Those two things are paradoxical. They don't really align. What could that mean?
That we're self-aware and say it again.
We are self-aware tools.
Okay. Well, we kind of have to be to have free will.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the way that we're talking about it, of attention.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
what would be the point? I mean, yeah.
So let me spell out where I'm going. In second density, the primary level of consciousness is that of the mind-body complex in a feedback loop within itself. So you think of animals and plants on a much more longer time frame, animals in a much more shorter time frame. But they both have the same uh, 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 intercourse with their environment. In other words, they sense things coming in and they respond. And the mind is kind of like, this is what separates an animal or plant from a mineral. A mineral doesn't have any response, at least as such, right? It kind of just yields completely. In an animal, you have this idea of survival, of keeping the system intact and coherent. And so the nervous system, or whatever it is in plants, becomes this way in which you respond to the environment so that you can maintain your integrity as an organism separate from the environment, but you can also be, adapt to that environment too. So you are the mind is kind of like disciplining this organism to be in harmony with the changing environment.
And there's memory in there too.
And there's memory in there too, right? But there is no ability to understand what's going on. It is simply a direct response, right? It's a direct reaction.
There's no reasoning.
There's no reasoning. Yeah. Whatever reasoning is happening, it's not happening at the level of the awareness of the organism as the organism.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like
it's more like
you can think.
It's like, okay, stimuli. What do we remember about this? Okay, we're gonna do this. That sort of like.
Yeah. You can think of, even like from a genetic point of view, genetics kind of expressing this inherent intelligence and intelligibility in the universe. That genetically there is a kind of disciplining and like greater system that's going on, but the individual unit doesn't participate in that. And in third density, the individual comes to the forefront. The individual comes to the forefront, and instead of being simply a mind-body complex with a single feedback loop, I would argue that now there are two feedback loops going on, at least. There's the mind-body, but there's also the spirit-mind. And I think it is that spirit-mind feedback loop that is the genesis of the reflective awareness that we enjoy now. In other words, we don't just experience, we can kind of look at our experience from a position of somewhat remove and look at it as an experience rather than just we're in it, we're responding, we're reacting. We don't have any time to think about it. I think that's where our ideals of justice, of mathematics, all these like more abstract ideas can come about because we have this ability to see patterns that reflection allows us to do.
Yeah.
But we are in front of the veil of our full selves. So even though we have the spirit complex activated in a way where it is in potential in lower densities, we don't have the ability to have, we don't have that certainty that comes from the direct access and identification with all these other parts of ourself. And however, we are learning how to have great impacts on our environment to the point where we could blow up the planet if we want. Like, we understand the underlying intelligence of the physical world. We are able to come up with artistic modes of expression, technological modes of expression that imbue our not just our environment, but this particular kind of environment that we learn to articulate with language, this yellow ray social energy complex, society, right?
Mhm.
Society, and then we build selves that have a place within that society in a way that you don't do in the pack. In the pack, you're just another mouth and another set of jaws and teeth and claws, right? You belong, there's love, but it's not this kind of like, you don't need to be something. If you are, it's not a conscious thing that you're doing as a self-aware entity. Now we are self-aware of our position in society, and we create selves that occupy that position, and we cultivate and protect that self's stay place in the social order. Um,
Very complex.
it's very complex, yes, and it's not something that I don't think any of us are totally at peace with it, right?
No.
So we have all of these far more intelligent ways of expressing the creator, but we don't have the ability to appreciate it fully because we don't see the real fruits. I think Ross says that you don't see the fruits. You don't see the real fruits of beingness when you're in front of the veil, and that veil is drawn between you and the like larger ability you have to participate in your beingness. And so when we get to fourth density, we have social memory, which means our social place stops becoming this thing that we have to like craft and cultivate and shoehorn in. But because we can trust each other, because we can't deceive each other, because we can see each other's innermost thoughts, we learn to trust, and then we can truly harness what we feel all in this society on planet Earth we should be doing. We should all be working for the betterment of each other, the betterment of the planet, and we have the capability to do it. We just don't have the will to do it because we don't see far enough to be able to trust each other to do it. In fourth density, that changes, and we are able, which is why fourth density is the first point at which you have planetary complexes reaching out to other third density planets and helping them with messages like Kuo and Hatan and Latui have offered us. What I think I'm rambling a little bit. In that sense, those Confederation entities are kind of helping to govern the creator's creation. They not only help with messages and inspiration to third density planets, they help with harvest. They intervene in other ways. And there's this
respond to the call.
right. But the call is not the same thing as the stimulus of your environment, right? It's this much more intelligent, much more refined and abstract way in which you are doing so. It's almost as if you are part of creating the environment in which evolution occurs, not simply a subject of it.
Right. Well, outside the veil, we know we are co-creators.
Right. But you have full awareness of that, whereas in third density, you don't have full awareness.
Right.
You have to take it on faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'm trying to say is that third density seems to me to be this liminal space between reacting to stimuli in the creation and being a full co-creator that is responsible for the stewardship and management of the creation as such. In third density, we see that we have that potential, but we don't know how to direct it, right? So we create like nuclear energy with all these we create fossil fuel pollution. Like we have all this ability to like manipulate the world, but we don't see far enough to see whether it's a good or bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't really discipline ourselves on it. And I think that's just kind of like our lot until we can learn to open up and trust each other. That's what happens in fourth density. But we can't do that opening up and trusting until we've made an individual at the mind, body, spirit complex level, an individual decision of how we are going to realize our will. That, and when I say will, I actually mean in part, but mostly that deeper will of what we're paying attention to, of what we think the game that we want to pay attention to actually is. Is it one in which we are trying to gain control over our environment, Or is it one in which we're trying to cooperate with the creator's creation, right? Service to self, service to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so third density and polarity is this kind of crash course in how to be a co-creator rather than just a creation, a creature.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to understand that our waking consciousnesses, the part of me that you directly see through the camera and that is gesturing and saying all these weird things, like that's a creature. That is a created personality. Whether it was me, whether it was society, whether it was the
Curated,
creator,
we'll
it doesn't
say.
matter. Like it's a created thing.
Yeah.
It is it's not an artificial intelligence, but it is a cultivated intelligence that is good for one thing, which is acting in a physical reality and bubbling up the fruits of those interactions with this lowest level of reality. It's almost as if like the light of the creator can't go any further than the physical illusion. It's in the physical illusion that the contact is made, and therefore the light coming down can bounce back. It doesn't just go infinitely far down. Maybe it does go infinitely far down, and the level of awareness or the octave is kind of like what it means. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of ways you could think about it. It's not important to get this stuff like totally right.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is something that I found really liberatory, which is that these models that I'm putting forward, these sort of like gambles of how I think things work, they don't have to be right or wrong necessarily, as long as I don't force them on myself and others and make them dogma. If I treat them as like thought experiments in order to feel things that I otherwise wouldn't be able to feel, intuit things and have thoughts that otherwise I wouldn't be able to have those thoughts because they wouldn't have the structures that give them fruition, then I can use the map without having the map be my whole world.
Yeah, I kind of think about tarot that way too.
Absolutely. This is the promise of the archetypes in general, is that they are kind of the source code of our ability to have consciousness in the first place, and everything kind of breaks down to them. But the interesting stuff happens when you combine and synthesize them, and you get these new things coming out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same sense that I talked about the light of the creator sort of like penetrating through all these layers, spirit, mind, body, and then hitting this sort of like point where it can't go any further, and then returning. And I feel like our physical illusion is that lowest point, whatever that means. It's that inflection point. It's funny because Kuo actually talked about the spirit complex as being a really important part of that optical like model that was being talked about, where these energies penetrating the creation have their roots in the archetypal mind. And it's kind of like they go down into the illusion and sort of potentiate all of this stuff that then we experience. And we experience them as a kind of harvesting of this potentiation. We harvest them back, and they come back to the creator, and they kind of get reorganized. All right, well, this was matrix of mind. This was potentiator spirit. You know, we're sort of putting all the pieces back from where they came from. We're putting the shapes back in the holes that match the shape, right? But what Kuo says is that there's actually remainders. There are energies that come back that cannot be traced back to the archetypes. And these are the penumbras of the new archetypes. These are the penumbras these are the foreshadowing of the next octave, when we will have a new archetypal articulation of consciousness. And the spirit complex is a organ that, in part, processes these things so that the creator can benefit from these new things that the creation showed about itself. And so what I'm trying to say is that this is kind of a different way of talking about what Kingsley talks about when he talks about how like absolutely crucial our lives and our experiences are. Even, and the Confederation talks about this too. But it's not something in which the drama of our life as we understand it is directly implicated. It is kind of a byproduct of what we are learning in our lives, right? It's kind of like, and this is what you would think it would mean for you to be an instrument. The instrument helps the user figure out what's important without getting itself tangled up in all of the stuff it has to sift through to get to that important thing.
Yeah.
And therefore, we serve the creator best, not when we do good or necessarily think good, although I think the curation of our thoughts is an incredible means of discipline to make ourselves good instruments. But it is honing our instrumentality through paying attention to our inner lives, because it is at that level that we are closest to our full selves. And the more that we can be in harmony with that full self, the more we, will be a good instrument for that full self when it hits that lowest point of manifestation and pulls out the harvest of it through our experience. But we also get to participate in that sort of like recognition of the value of life, instead of it just being about, the things that we normally think that, secular people value in life, money and cars and family and all this stuff. We get to see the inner value of all that stuff, not directly, not intellectually, but affectively, in our hearts, in the feelings and the intuitions, in the deep parts of ourselves that start to resonate and sympathetically vibrate with the resonance that we, and the vibration that we attain. What I'm trying to say with all of this is that human instruments, I want to put a new gloss on human instrumentality, not so that I have like a master theory that I can then write papers and give lectures on, but so that we can figure out what's useful in doing in our lives and stop beating ourselves up for hitting ourselves, for running into the wall over and over and over again. Whether you break through the wall like Kool-Aid Man, whether you get knocked down by running into the wall, whether you just stand there in front of the wall, none of that matters in and of itself. It only matters to the extent that it allows you to have an experience of attuning the self to the greater constellation of selves that a mind, body, spirit complex encompasses. Just like the AI doesn't understand why it's helpful to me, but it is. And the more that it responds to my direction of it, the more it will understand that it's being better or worse. But it will be better. It will be better if it does. And then there's where it breaks down a little bit, because the AI doesn't do anything of its own, at least yet. But I do think it is useful to think of our waking personalities as a kind of artificial intelligence that our greater selves are using. The difference is that we have the benefit, us as AI have the benefit of being able to identify with the user of our tooling. And therefore, we have the ability to not judge ourselves based on whether or not we have a great career, or we have a great family, or we write great books, or whatever it is, or record a great rap album. But on this deeper level where nobody else has access to it, and yet all of our ability to be at peace and have a sense of satisfaction arises from.
I like to remind myself of, there's a quote, I don't remember the end of it, but it's a reminder that third density is impregnated with the most extravagant opportunities for evolution, no more than any other density. The amount of entropy for evolution in other densities, I mean, fourth density sounds so cool. I can read minds and, exist as a Borg type consciousness, but
no pluribus reference.
Right, yeah. I'm like pluribus, but yeah. Third density is where we can we can be literally like shooting stars in what we can achieve and experience, and every moment is just like filled like I think if we were truly like in like in a more aware state in third density, if we had that like um fully dual activated fourth density third density thing, like we would be in a constant state of absolute amazement. And so sometimes that's kind of reminder helps kind of remind me that what we have here in this blip, tiny little moment, this incarnation is so valuable. And everything, every experience, however tragic, horrible, beautiful, magical, is so just, there's just so much more behind it. And it's so amazing.
We have to really exert ourselves to tap into that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't come natively from just participating in the world normally.
No, and meditation really helps bring you into that, like, you know.
Yeah,
It's
we
true.
instead of being a transitive verb, we become this intransitive verb of just being.
Mm-hmm.
And then we Charles Eisenstein in his book The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible has this phrase that has stuck with me for like 20 years now, or however long it was, where he says, you can become capable of things that you can't make happen. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I become capable of evolving because I identify with a greater self than who I narrowly am. But that narrow self is the only self that I have that can do anything, that can make things happen. I have to surrender the idea that it's simply through making things happen that things happen, right? It doesn't have to do solely with my activity. It also has to do with what I see and how I open myself up to a greater sense of self, of other self, of the creator and the creation.
Good stuff.
Anything to add? I'm probably ready to throw in the towel now.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to wrap it up too, but yeah, I think that's good. Although I one thing that has been, I read somewhere that something I that anytime embarrassment, like the feeling of embarrassment is an indication that you're moving past your conditioning. And I don't know that that's always true, but like I have been, it's been in my head. It's been thinking, so I've been thinking about that, and really just trying to like feel my feelings, as cringy as they may be or whatever, and just trying to think about that, like those feelings of shame or whatever, in the context of conditioning, whether it be societal conditioning, conditioning I've done to myself, just conditioning based on my experiences. And it's been another little tool in my toolbox to feel my feelings and thinking about my experiences, and thinking about my relation to those experiences, I guess. So that's just been something that's been on my mind. But I've really enjoyed this conversation, Jeremy.
Just one more thing. Like, I think that's really an incredible insight about embarrassment,
Right?
because only people who
Think
have
about it.
self-awareness can be embarrassed.
Right.
But like, I don't know what role that plays in the seeking life, other than just as more
Just as the reflective
catalyst to.
tool, like why are you really embarrassed? Like, and or it just kind of thinks about, or it helps me think about my own like limitations. Like, that's, other people aren't foisting embarrassment onto myself. It's a
No,
wholly something I'm generating myself. But like,
because
it
your
helps me think,
position, your
you know.
perhaps your position in the yellow ray matrix of society
Mm-hmm.
is always like vulnerable.
It is.
In social memory, that vulnerability will be celebrated because
Right.
we'll all see how equally vulnerable we are.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, we're trying to pretend that I've got it all together.
Yeah.
If I've got like dirt on my face, then like I'm betraying the fact that I'm not a respect. It's kind of a
Yeah.
respectability, isn't it? It's like
Sure.
a
Yeah. But you were talking too about like your cultivated self, like your
yeah,
persona and everything, and then embarrassment is when things kind of challenge that self.
yeah.
And so it's I don't know, it's been something that's
You
been on my mind lately.
yeah. It's like you participate in your social life from a position of having a certain kind of like respect about yourself, and you
Yeah.
expect respect from others. And then when you do something that makes you doubt your own ability to respect yourself, now you, by definition, doubt other people's ability to respect you. And
Hmm.
then the feeling is like a very second density feeling of, I'm not going to be an equal in the pack.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to get kicked
Deficit.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Whereas, like, I think Jesus in his service did a lot of things that people would find disrespectful or like this unrespectable, I should say, not
Hmm.
disrespectful. Um, and yet he had full confidence in himself. So it didn't matter that other people saw him that way because he wasn't resonating with that.
Right. Yeah.
He saw himself as doing his father's work.
Hmm.
That's what mattered. That's how he appraised himself. And I think that sets the standard for us because if we have that's kind of like what third density is about. It's about instead of like we seem to be reaching out into the outer world and having our reality there, yet catalyst after catalyst eventually convinces us that we actually look within. And it's by looking within that we become the proper constituent of society rather than focusing solely on what's out there.
Hmm.
We could go on and on, right?
We could.
But I really think the embarrassment thing is interesting, and I'm
It
going to
is, right?
reflect on it.
Yeah, reflect on it because it's a good
We
reflecting tool.
we
Like
actually
I
might do
see
an
that
episode on that. I think
on
that'd be
embarrassment. Oh,
a good topic.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it and there's so many ways in which like from body image to social interactions to your professional life to your like even with your partner, even to like um um
Doing
strangers,
cringe
every
online.
yeah, yeah, all the proxies. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for keeping me on the rails on this conversation because it really helps me feel
Yeah.
like I got something off my chest I really wanted to get off my chest.
Yeah.
And listeners, I'm going to have notes that go way beyond the narrow things I've talked about because although I didn't mention a lot of Kuo and Ra per se, there was a lot of Kuo and Ra that went into this. Not least a lot of the stuff that we talked about at the 5th channeling intensive of the Other Selves Working Group, where we were querying Kuo on the subject of will in multiple different ways. So I'm going to put all of that in the notes, and if you care to, it's all great reading. It's just that in order to have like a coherent flow in this podcast, I kind of had to go beyond it, and hopefully that was worth your time. So thank you so much, Jamie, for
Yeah.
helping me with this.
No, it's been fun.
All right, and got to sign off now. Check the show notes, and until we speak again, dear listeners, stay in the love and light.